What's going on YouTube? In today's video, we're going to be covering the top 5 lessons for somebody who's starting off in an analytics role, whether that is data analyst or data scientist or machine learning engineer, BI developer, whatever your title may be. If you are new and starting off in an analytics role, these lessons are going to help you jumpstart your career. And the reason why I'm making this video is simple. When I look back on the early days of my career, if somebody would have pulled me aside and covered these lessons with me, just taken 10, 15 minutes out of their day to talk me through some of this stuff, it would have saved me a lot of pain and suffering and a lot of heartache. And really, at the end of the day, it would have just saved me a lot of time. And so I'm hoping that by sharing these lessons with you as you are in the early days of your career, it'll help you just be that much more successful. And, like I said, just jumpstart your career. So before we get started, I just have to mention that I did get this PowerPoint template from Slides Go. They're not paying me to say that or anything, but they do require that if I use and share one of their templates, I have to give them credit. So there we go. And so first of all, I just want to mention congratulations on your new role. We all know that the job search process pretty much sucks. It is going to wear you down. It is demoralizing and demotivating, and it really just, it can really tire you out. So if you just accepted a new position or recently started a new position, I just want to pause for a moment and say congratulations on that. You should be very excited. You've got a very exciting career ahead of you. And if you're still searching for a job, just stay motivated, keep at it. It will come in time. Sometimes it just takes a little bit more effort than you might initially expect. The first lesson I want to cover today is learning the business first and the tools second. So this lesson is important because the tools that we use to do our job, if you think of like a carpenter, for example, that the carpenter's tools would be like a hammer and nails, screwdriver, a drill, saws, things like that. With us and what we're doing, the tools that we use to do our job would be pretty much the technology. So it could be the various programming languages like Python, R, SQL, NoSQL. It could be the environments that we are running those programming languages in, whether it's Jupyter Notebook or R Console or like SAS Enterprise Guide. The tools are basically the technology, and it's important that in the early days of your career, you prioritize learning the business first and worry about learning the tools second. And the reason why is because anybody can really hop on Google and learn how to run some code. If you came out of a boot camp or maybe a graduate degree or a university program for analytics or data science, you'll probably reflect back on that and remember that a lot of the problems that you tried to solve throughout that journey, you got on Google and went on Stack Overflow or maybe Reddit and looked up how to solve those problems or write the code that you need to write in order to do whatever it is you need to do. That isn't going to change when you start your career. You're not all of a sudden going to become Einstein developer slash coder. And there's going to be things that come up that you're still going to need to get on Google for and reference back to. So everybody's going to have to do that. But in order to be successful at your new job, you need to understand the problems that you're trying to solve. So your goal as an analyst or a data scientist is to solve problems for the business. And you can't solve those problems for the business if you don't have a deeper understanding of the business. So take some time out of your day and schedule some time with people on your immediate team, do some informal interviews, pick their brain, find out what they prioritize and what's important to them on a day-to-day basis. That's going to give you a more granular view of what your immediate team's priorities are. And as you're speaking with those teammates, ask them for referrals and recommendations to other people within the organization or the line of business that they would recommend that you speak with. That gives you a warm introduction to reach out to those people and say, hey, so-and-so on my team recommended I speak with you. I'd love to pick your brain and just understand a little bit more about what's important to you and what you're doing for the business. Typically, people are going to be willing to help out a newer person. I think as I was getting started, there was like one person that I never heard back from. And, whatever, it is what it is. But generally speaking, people are going to be excited and enthusiastic to help out somebody who's newer and getting started. It's like a breath of fresh air. And, speaking with like newer people is, it's always fun to hear and see what their perspectives are. So don't be afraid to reach out and schedule these meetings. People, like I said, generally speaking, are going to want to help you. Next, know whether you need a Ford or a Ferrari. And to put it simply, if you can solve a problem by doing some like rudimentary copy, paste, concatenation, text to columns in Excel, and that takes you 15 minutes, or the same problem takes you 2 hours to write some code for and solve using Python, do it in 15 minutes in Excel. The simplest solution is always the best solution. And so unless this is something that you're going to need to iterate over several times, maybe it's a report that you generate on a monthly basis, or maybe it's even an ad hoc request, but it's going to be coming in multiple times again in the future. In those cases, it makes more sense, of course, to invest the time up front to write a program that will allow you to iterate through that process by only making minor changes. But if it's a one-off thing or just a small part of a broader project or analysis that you're doing, just go with the simplest solution possible. That's going to save you a lot of time and a headache as you're, developing and creating these, crafting these solutions to the problems that you're trying to solve. And that leads into the next lesson, which is don't create data and charts, create solutions and recommendations. So as an analyst or a data scientist, you use data and you create charts or plots to help you understand what's happening in that data. And so you're using that data and you're visualizing it with charts to help you further understand the problem. But as you do that and you are solving these problems, your end goal is to basically identify a solution and make recommendations to solve the problems that are presented to you. So as you're sharing these solutions with leadership or maybe senior analysts or maybe your immediate manager, whatever it may be, you always want to think with the solution at the forefront and your recommendations at the forefront, and not lead in with like the data. You don't want to share like tabular data or even necessarily charts. These can be supporting elements. Maybe you put them in the appendix of a presentation, but at the end of the day, you're solving problems for the business, and that is your main goal. And so they want to hear your solutions and your recommendations. If they have more questions, you can, like I said, have that data and those charts available to reference, but you should always lead in with your solution and recommendations, especially as you present to higher level leadership. And that leads into my next lesson, which is know your audience. So if you are presenting to a peer on your team, another analyst, or maybe a senior analyst or senior data scientist, you're going to communicate with them quite differently than how you would communicate with a line of business executive. So like I said before, you might present that solution and recommendation to the line of business executive, but the senior analyst or the senior data scientist on your team who is helping you to complete this project or kind of guiding you along in completing this project, especially in the early days as you're more junior, those people are going to want to make sure that your method and your approach is correct. They're going to say, they're going to ask those more granular probing questions about the data, like, well, did you consider like the distribution, or did you consider that the populations were similar before you started testing, and things like that. Whereas you're not necessarily going to present on those elements to like leadership or or line of business executives. And so you always want to just know the audience that you're speaking with and who you're presenting to. I think that pretty much everybody nowadays has to take in one form or another a speech class in their undergraduate degree, and this is probably one of the first lessons that you learn in that class, and it does not change as being one of the most important lessons to public speaking as you transition into your career. So you always want to know your audience and craft and tailor your communication to that audience. And the last lesson today is that there's no such thing as perfect data. And this is important because there's always, especially in a big corporation or even a small business, there will always be nuances to your data where, the data just isn't perfect and there's odd records populating and, there's seemingly no explanation for why certain records appear in your data the way that they do. The sooner that you come to terms with that and just accept that for what it is, that the data is not perfect, the sooner you're going to be able to move past it and stop wasting time obsessing over it. So just keep that in mind, as you're working through and exploring the data in the business that you're working for. If the data is not perfect, don't be surprised. It rarely ever is. And just as a bonus here, I just want to say have fun in your new role. With, like I said, the analytics career, it's an exciting one. You have a lot of opportunities ahead of you. And, just keep in mind that in any job, there's going to be things about the job that you might not like or that you might not enjoy. And it's just important to remember that that is going to be the case in every job. So try not to spend too much time focusing on those negative aspects of the job and really just focus on, what you enjoy about the job and things that, are in your control. And, overall, like I said, just congratulations on the new job. Have fun. I hope these lessons helped. I've got a summary here. So just to recap, first, learn the business first and the tools second. Anybody can learn the tools, but to understand and solve problems, you have to know the business. Know whether you need a Ford or a Ferrari. The simplest solution is usually the best. Don't create data and charts. Create solutions and recommendations. Your ultimate goal is to solve problems for the business. Know your audience. Presenting and communicating with leadership is different than presenting and communicating with other analysts. There is no such thing as perfect data, so don't lose sleep over imperfect data. Don't waste your time trying to make your data perfect. And last but not least, have fun. Find things to enjoy about your job and focus on that. Don't get caught up in the water cooler shenanigans. So thanks for watching. If there's any lessons that I didn't cover in here that you think it would be helpful for the world at large to know, leave those in the comments below. And, I'm genuinely curious to hear what your thoughts were regarding some of those lessons that we covered today. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear it. If you appreciate the video, go on ahead and like and subscribe. Definitely helps the channel. And like I said, yeah, thanks again for watching and best of luck in your new career. Have a great rest of your day.